Welcome everyone to the EED webinar on October 2nd. This is webinar number 13, and the theme is Neutralizing Power Games and Manipulation. Joining us, we have Paul, Uta, and Irena, and there may be more people that join us, so welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. And what I'd like to know right off the bat is what attracted you to come to this webinar? Meaning, what are you most curious about or fascinated about the EED way of dealing with power games and manipulation? What is it you're dying to know here? And I'll note your questions and comments and weave them into the presentation.
Hi, I am Irene, and I'm always attracted by your approach because I found really practical, and especially in the case of power games and manipulation that I saw in many conflicts, especially by working in a startup in a team. There was an incredible level of power games and manipulation from all the members of the team. And I think that for a coach that work with companies as well as life coaches, essential learning how to deal or dance with power games and manipulation. And I find you an incredible trainer, so this is why I'm here.
Okay. So how to dance with it, work with it, right? Yeah, and it's always present. Okay. Well, great. What I'm giving you in this webinar is more how to recognize what's happening and then some simpler tips and antidotes on how to neutralize, and a lot with how to, in a way, protect yourself or not get sucked in so hard into these games. I mean, these games are very, very, very sticky. So we really need a lot of self-awareness and self-discipline to be able to not control them or eliminate them, but more to play with it and play out of it. And then there are ways where you can actually deauthorize the game. Now, we have an hour, so, and this is a very complex issue. So the purpose of this webinar is to give you information, okay? Some of the concepts. How do power games function? How does manipulation function? That in itself already gives you a lot of awareness and a lot of tools, with some tips and simple antidotes to really practice how to neutralize, how to deauthorize, how to master the games, how to play them better. It takes practice and discipline, and that is what we provide you with in the module. So I'm being very upfront that I'm not providing you with the life-saving solutions here, because it takes practice and discipline and a lifetime of discipline to really master things, okay? So I'm not making any false promises or assumptions up front. I just want everyone to be clear here that you're not going to solve manipulation in an hour, okay? Welcome, Jason. Good to see you. Irena, is that clear?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And you will have stuff to work with. And then for questions like, well, how do I do that like this? What's the technique? That's why you come to these modules. Modules 1 and 2, and the Reconciling Conflict course deal with this. It gives you the foundation, plus the basic techniques, plus the advanced techniques, okay? And then our team facilitation course also deals with this somewhat. And then if I design a second module of team facilitation, it'll deal strictly with toxic teams, okay? Good, there's my long answer to your short question. Who else? And by the way, Jason, I was just asking everyone just briefly and initially, what's attracting you to come here to this webinar? What is it that you want to know about how EED deals with power games and manipulation? So it's like, what are the specific things you're looking for? So who else? And we'll run through this quick.
Okay, then I I'll be next, if
Yeah.
it's okay. So for me, yes, what Irena said, of course, it's interesting, and I'm also interested in where you make the border or the between what is just like the play of temperaments. There's always somebody a bit higher and somebody a bit lower in status, and that's when something happens in between people. And then there's this power games which become negative, where you say, well, you get sucked in and you have to be aware not to be sucked in. And where does it start to become sort of negative? That's a question I'm curious to hear.
Excellent. And this actually is more the bulk of this webinar, just what you've described. How to recognize status, how to define your borders, giving you lots of awareness. And then it's easy when it looks negative, but what I'm giving you and what I want to focus on more is when it starts out looking positive and then it's too late when you realize it's negative. Okay, these are the hidden manipulations, okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Great. Who else?
Hello, so this is Paul. I'm generally interested in the webinars of yours, and I've done the modules 1 to 3, and I want to practice more, and I want to see how you put polarity and power games and manipulation together.
Okay. In this webinar, I won't talk too much about polarity. I will, but I won't go into detail about how polarities work because we've already done other webinars on that, and then it's in the modules as well. Polarity is the focus of module 2, of course, plus the conflict course. But I will, we can't escape. Manipulation uses polarity, okay? So, yeah. So this is a different use of polarity, let's say, okay? For those of you that want to learn more about how we're treating polarities, just email me and I can give you the links to past webinars, okay? Or just come take the courses. Cool, okay. And Jason, what in particular are you looking for or curious about?
Hi, Troy. Yeah, long time no speak, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the timing was kind of interesting because a couple weeks ago I did a interviewed for a podcast on the topic of trust and psychological safety in the workplace.
Great.
And I expect that there's, I don't know, that just seemed to dovetail nicely with that topic. So.
I'm including that here, especially what's going on in the corporate culture and in the global culture and what's happening in the media. Okay, because things are changing rapidly and there's a lot of manipulation going on and some people are recognizing it and some people aren't. And those who are manipulating are banking on that we won't recognize it or fight back or call the bluff, so to speak. So there's a double whammy for this webinar. It's yes, for you to be aware of how manipulation happens and where it can happen in your own personal life, but how it's happening around you as well, okay? Just to raise more awareness, okay? And psychological safety is a big issue, and sometimes I think it's getting abused in the coaching sense and in the corporate sense. And you'll see as I go along what I mean by that.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that statement. So, yeah.
Okay.
Curious to see what you have to say about that.
Okay, good. While I do the webinar, if things stir up for you, please speak out. Please feel free to comment or question at any time, all right? I encourage debate and discussion, okay? There's never anything inappropriate to say because I'm always in response, all right? That is the nature of EED, to always be in response, and nothing is taboo, okay? So feel free to disagree, all right? So let's move forward. I'm going to move through these first few slides quickly so we can get to the meat. So what are we discovering today? We are getting an overview of basic power games and why manipulation works. And we're going to focus more on the why manipulation works. I'm just giving you a very brief background on the power games, okay? And more so, we're going to explore common manipulative bids and then discuss some of their antidotes. So how can you neutralize some simple manipulative bids? What I'm hoping is that you'll be able to hear a manipulation start, and then you can be able to just neutralize it immediately before it goes too far, all right? So I'm giving you what I could call stabilizers, all right? And then some tips for building immunity to these manipulative games, but that takes time and practice and discipline to build that immunity, all right? That's a lifetime of work, all right? And simple ways to restore resilience, well-being, and autonomy, and all the other webinars are focused on that as well. So you'll get much more information on how to build resilience, reconnect to well-being, and generate your autonomy from the other webinars as well. And that is the whole focus of EED, right? So what is EED? For those of you that haven't attended before, it's a system that is fractal based, and it is a holistic approach. What I mean by fractal is everything is based upon repeating patterns, and these patterns are working on the smallest scale to the largest scale. That allows us to not look into the past or go into the future or the present. Everything is happening now, and both the problem and the solution are contained in every moment. We're just unraveling the moment, okay? When it's holistic, everything is happening everywhere. It affects everything. So when you're working with a client or a group, there is no stone unturned, and everything affects each other, all right? Conflict works in fractal patterns so that you don't have to wait for it to absolutely escalate. And you can catch little micro behaviors when they're small, and when you shift that fractal pattern, the conflict or the game, as I'll explain in a bit, can disappear. You can dissolve it. It takes work. And that's what our conflict, reconciling conflicts is all about, is dissolving the pattern or shifting the pattern. So whether you're a coach or a leader or a mediator or a healer, when you're using EED, it has you focus on the most fundamental level that is driving the human being, which are these patterns. And then from there, it builds up our behaviors and our actions and our mindsets and our filters. But it's the fundamental, at the fundamental level, it are these patterns, these fractals. So it doesn't matter what level you're working at. When you can work with a pattern, it starts to unravel everything. It starts to shift everything. So in a way, it's efficient. Rather than focusing on transformation, we are focusing on restoring resilience and well-being and autonomy before we make changes. What that does is there's a level of acceptance from the client and you, which cuts down resistance. Because many times fear and resistance is going to distract you from the core pattern that's going on. And so when we move into resilience first, 98% of that resistance can fall away, and then the real trouble, so to speak, can appear, and that's what we're reconciling, all right? So we are actually reconciling the personality with the essence, the identity with the essence, or the core nature of ourselves, or the permanent nature of ourselves, all right? Or if you want, the higher mind with the animal ego. We're not trying to eliminate one and favor the other, all right? We're reconciling them both because they work as one vehicle. What this does is when you can reconcile ego and essence together, it increases agility and creates a liberation where nothing is taboo. And when nothing is taboo, there's really nothing to fear. And when you're resilient, there's nothing to fear. It doesn't mean you're eliminating fear. It means you're not attached to fear. Just want to make sure you're all still there. Yeah, okay, we are, because I'm paranoid that this thing freezes and that I get cut off. So we're actually not working with transformation, we're working with transmutation, which is more an alchemical process. So there's nothing to add or delete. All the material is all there. It's just, it gets rearranged and revealed and rearranged. And then we're moving into, say, the best or ideal or most functional, most resilient version of ourselves and our groups. And that applies to coaching, leadership, mediation, facilitation, healing, etc. It is optimizing our operating system so that we function cleanly and efficiently, so to speak. Any questions or comments there? And this is highly applicable to power games and manipulation, because when we are restoring resilience, well-being, and autonomy, we're already immunizing the person from being susceptible to manipulation. All right? I'll show you why in a moment. So we work on these, what we call 4 levels of truth in relationship. All right? Many systems only work on the first 2 upper levels, or just on the first level, which is story. I'll briefly explain these because in other webinars, these are explained more fully. But each person has their story or narrative. That comes from a singular point of view. It's a singular truth. It's only one piece of the pie, okay? That story might change, but they're reacting upon themselves from that story, and it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whenever you're interacting with someone's story, you're just reinforcing it, they're reinforcing it, but you're not getting a wide truth. You're just getting a slim version of part of the truth, because it's based on point of view. Now, when you get 2 people together, they each have their story. This is where you get truth in opposition, black and white. Each one believes theirs is true, but they will not accept the truth of the other. And therefore, this is what's creating the conflict. They're trying to conquer or absorb each other or convert each other to their side of the truth. This is where we are rigid and positional. And that's the level of game. And that's where power and manipulation, power games and manipulation exist on the level of story and game, all right? Because there is rigidity, and it's all based on perception. And it is based on conditions and rules that we must follow. And if we break the rules, then we have to change our truth, which changes our game. And we find that deeply upsetting to our ego. Are you guys following so far? Yeah? Okay. So the next level is dream. This is what the whole purpose of EED is. And EED operates on dream level, where we start opening the bubbles of each person. And the facilitator is coming from, or the practitioner is coming from an open bubble to drop the person or the client into this more fluid state where they are less positional and less rigid. They stop clinging to that one position, and they are able to have more acceptance, and they're able to operate for more transparency. And now those 2 opposites are no longer competing, but they can become complementary to each other, and then there's more cooperation. So there's no need to conquer, absorb, or compete or convert. The 2 live not in harmony, but in complementary contrast to bring a wider truth. And they can swap roles, they can take on each other's truths without feeling threatened. So it's an enriched truth. Making sense? Okay. And this lowest level, or is called source. It doesn't mean it's a low level, it's more the deepest level. And this is where we drop the ego altogether, we drop the personality altogether, and we are more in our permanent, timeless nature. You could call it higher consciousness or infinite awareness. We all can experience this. It is a level of awareness that is not defined by personality or identity. And this is where we can experience a unity consciousness or a unified truth. Another way to describe it is all potential. We do not live at the level of source, but we can connect to source and bring that up into our reality. We live mostly in story and game. Some people dip into dream, and fewer even connect to source. What EED is doing is it is opening access to dream and source just by training action, response, and awareness, and having us be in relationship on all 4 levels fluidly. We're not trying to eliminate story and game. Our world is about story and game. And when we access source and dream, there's where we find our immunity and antidotes to manipulation. Questions or thoughts or comments? I know it's a lot to swallow. Or is it all sounding okay? I'm moving fast so I can get to the good stuff.
It's very, very okay, very clear. I like how you put the yellow boxes left to the triangle. It makes it very clear.
Right.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, great. So, what is truth? Now, this is very foundational. This will help you start to unravel manipulations coming at you, all right? So, a truth is not necessarily a fact. What do we mean by that? Well, facts are facts, and they are created by actions or doing, okay? Facts are not feelings or perceptions. This is important to remember, okay? Because they all get collapsed together. And when they're collapsed together, that opens us to manipulation of truth, okay? Facts are not changed by feelings, but feelings can change perception, all right? So don't let perception become a fact, and don't let feelings sway your perceptions. So even just from that much, what are you taking? Or are there thoughts here? If not, I'll keep going. Okay. So challenge and question everything, including the facts, and dig into the source action, okay? There's a double meaning to that. On the EED sense, like connect yourself into source and start interacting and perceiving from there. And the other is just, what's the simple action here? Take feelings and perceptions aside, and what is the fact, okay? And that is a place to start. Transparency of action leads to truth, not words. Words do not necessarily mean truth, okay? Now, thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, my thoughts are, I want a dictionary that explains all the words that EED is using. Like that.
What words aren't you understanding?
No, they're great.
Okay.
Great, I understand them, but it's like the definition is very on point, and I would like I don't know, what's creativity? How do you relate creativity to facts? I'm sure you can.
It has nothing to do with it.
I know, but
what is happening? See, this is what it is. What is happening? What happened? That's one of your defenses to propaganda and manipulation. Is just the facts, please. Not the hearsay, not the gossip. What are the facts? Okay, and this becomes important later, especially when you're the victim of manipulation. Yeah, I have something to add.
And for you, Troy, the facts are just the doing. So so facts are only what's in the outside world, and it's only if you actually act by body or create, make some difference, or how do you define it?
Facts are what happened. That's action. So you smiled. That's an action. That's a happening.
Okay.
Right? And this can also be like when you're reading media. What are the facts, not the opinions? And what are the sources of those facts? And you have to keep vetting what is the fact, okay? So question the facts, question the source. If we're not going to challenge or question, we'll never get clarity on what the facts are. If we just believe the opinions and the emotions, then we get swayed in our perceptions, okay? And then if we start believing perceptions and emotions, we lose track of the facts, okay? Fact is one of the first antidote to neutralizing manipulation, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And it takes practice to train your listening there. Mm-hmm. We'll go later to show you some examples. So how is the truth being manipulated? Well, just look at these statements. A good person tells the truth, and a bad person gets banished, meaning cut off, sent away, ostracized, okay? Not just punished, banished, all right? So you have a choice. Do you want to be a good person or not? There's already a double bind in this. This is already a manipulation, okay? We are conditioned by society to look towards authority for truth and validation. This is in politics, religion, education, it's everywhere. We are conditioned to look to authority for truth and validation. And we are increasingly conditioned to believe in words, not action. We are increasingly conditioned to trust the authority of what we are told or shown to be true. This is in media, but also in personal relationships, okay? We are conditioned to believe a passionate delivery of truth, of fact, or a vulnerable delivery of fact. To think that that must be more true because it has emotion or vulnerability in it. Okay? If it's said dryly, maybe it's not true. But if it's said with passion and tears and anger, it has to be true. Okay? We've been conditioned not to question that authority of truth in order for us to be a good person. Okay, so when I'm telling you the truth, don't question me. You're bad. All right? And we've been conditioned to forgive any mistakes or bad actions on authority's part in order to be a good person. Please, I didn't mean it. I didn't know. Oh, I made a mistake. Forgive me. You don't forgive me? You're a bad, evil person. Okay? This is a double bind. We're being taught to look to authority for truth and validation, and we're told we must be a good person. But if we question anything or don't believe in the authority, then we are losing trust in ourselves and we'll never discover the truth. So it's a vicious circle. Now, do you want to be a good person when you see it that way?
Troy, can I ask you a quick question? I'm not familiar with the term double bind. Would you mind just
double bind? It's like a double trap. It's telling you don't be a bad person, you'll be banished, and then if you don't follow any of these rules, you're a bad person. You're a bad person from the beginning, and don't be a bad person. That's the double bind in there. Is that making sense to you or not? It's like there's no way out. I've got you trapped from both sides. That's what a double bind means, and that is classic manipulation.
There's another way to put it, like you're behaving badly and you're also a bad person.
Yeah, you're behaving badly, you're a bad person, you're questioning me, and that's bad. And don't you want to be a good person? Because I'm telling you the truth, and truthful people are good people. So how could you question me?
Right. Because when you said that, it's kind of like what popped into my head was like two axes, right? Because there's like identity and behavior. It sounds like you're getting sort of closed in on both of those fronts.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going next.
Oh. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So,
Can I jump in quickly?
yeah.
I have this one example in my mind. It's a cinema example. Like a person asks the other person, don't you want to go to the cinema together with me? And the other person might answer, like, doesn't want to go to the cinema at all, might answer just no. Then the other person, the first person can say, well, right, you don't like me. You don't want to go to the cinema with me.
Yeah.
So the double bind is here. It either has to like sacrifice its own wish,
yeah,
or be, yeah.
A double bind means there is no choice. This is
like that. You
okay.
lose anyway.
You lose from the beginning. A good person tells the truth. A bad person gets banished. Do you want to be a good person? Like, no, I want to be a bad person. Like, who wants to be banished? Because it plays on our very, very, very primal need for survival and belonging, right? It's like, fine, be bad, you're banished, you die. That's it. So of course you want to be a good person. But the other double bind is they're collapsing a good person with truth. Only good people tell the truth. And that is the opening for the manipulation. Do you understand? And then it sets you up to never question, just believe. Especially when they do never encourage you to find your own authority within. There's they've set you up to be dependent on external authority for truth and validation. That's the main setup for all manipulations. I'll show you how. So power games, there's two basic games we play. There's millions of games, but they all boil down to two. Games of validation, which is, do I exist? Everyone. Am I existing? Am I here? Am I being recognized? Do I belong? Am I worthy? All these questions that have to do with validating myself, okay? And again, when we look to the authority from outside, we're going to play these games based on validation. It creates dependency. And then there are games of power. Okay, if I exist, can I control my existence? Am I safe? Am I secure? Will I survive? If I threaten controlling my existence, or if I threaten my existence itself, I mean, I now can manipulate you. If you're not autonomous or resilient in your own sense of validation and your own sense of power, if you're looking to external sources, you will be prone to these power games, okay? That's just human nature. So the life's work is to not need, or so these are driven by fear, need, and desire, which is driven by emptiness. This is the game level. Game level is driven by emptiness. We cover this in module 2 and in conflict. If I don't have a feeling of existence within myself, I'm empty. I have to fill myself up with proof that I exist. That's what I mean by the emptiness. So that creates fear or need or desire. If I have an emptiness, like no power in here, and I have to look outside to gain the power, then it's driven by fear, need, or desire for the power so that I make sure I'm safe and secure. So power games prey on that emptiness. We all have that. It's a disconnection from source. They prey on that emptiness with the promise to fulfill that emptiness, like fill it up, or to destroy you, like pulverize you. I will take away your validation, or I will give you all the validation you desire. I will take away any power you have, or I will give you all the power you desire. Okay? Those are power games. There's many variations of it, and I have another webinar on how conflict works, etc. But making sense, or any questions here?
Troy, why do you call it emptiness, which is driven by fear, need, and desire?
When we come from emptiness, no foundation, we're not self-generating, meaning we're not our own God within, so to speak. Okay, we're not connected to source or the flow of life. Okay. When we cut ourselves off from that, we have to then play God and imitate all of creation within ourselves, so to speak. This might sound highly spiritual, but this is where we get the negative thinking, the critics, the saboteurs. All of these things are based on trying to imitate power, control, validation, as opposed to being connected to the infinite source of life, so to speak. Just by the act of being born, we felt separated. And that separation reminds us or makes us think, gives us the illusion that we're empty, somehow empty or discarded, okay?
Can we ever overcome it?
Absolutely, yeah. When we develop our resilience, well-being, and autonomy, it's really easy to reconnect to that source. And then it's easy to reinforce that connection. But most of the programming out there, as long as we are focused on external authority, we won't develop that internal source. We look for that source outside of ourselves. And if we are constantly distracted out there, we're going to constantly live in fear. I'm simplifying it, okay? This is the whole point of EED, is to make that reconnection to internal source. If you want to call it internal divinity, that's fine, but it's just internal source. I am the master of my domain without needing to be that master. Okay, I just am. Okay. So what is manipulation? It is, number one, it's a shift of responsibility. If I'm manipulating you, I'm shifting my responsibility over to you. It's like I'm throwing over my baggage. And I'm distorting facts. It's a shift of responsibility, a distortion of fact, and it gives the illusion of power. And there's a double meaning for that. It could give you the illusion that you have power, or it gives you the illusion that I have power. But it's an illusion of power. And what it's doing is it's preying on the need for validation, the need to exist, to be recognized. And then it's taking away power, all right? Let that sink in. What comments or questions come up? Or how's this sounding for you? Yeah, go ahead, Irene.
Well, Troy, listening to your talk, I thought about how all societies in all levels are playing this game of manipulation.
Yeah.
And all are a projection of especially the religious policy, because they are no longer take care about spirituality. They are politicians.
Yes.
And I think that for us as coaches, it's crucial really educate ourselves to be connected as much as possible with the source, our inner source, because it is the true possibility that we have to be really impactful and respectful of others, and the energy that we can share with other people is very important when we are connected with the source.
Again, that's the level of unified truth. When you're able to embrace all truth, all potential, and still feel autonomous or resilient or still be okay, you can be fluid. There's no need to compete for power or validation because it's already fulfilled. Do you understand? You're not dependent. Do you understand?
Yes.
But if we're shifting the autonomy away and distorting facts, and then given the illusion of power, and then aggravating this need for validation, the power definitely gets taken away. We get divided, and the more we're divided and the more we need to fight, that gives us an illusion of power. So it's just a never-ending cycle of we're all manipulating each other because we're moving further and further and further away from source level, and we're just aggravating game level, which is all about opposition.
Yes.
So when you say shift of responsibility, like from whom to whom?
Okay. That can mean many things. And even as I'm saying this, I'm wondering if I should change the word to shift of autonomy or source of power. But what I mean here, shift responsibility, is if I'm responsible for, say, doing something bad to you, but I'm going to manipulate you, I'm going to make you think it's your responsibility. I'm not going to I'm shifting it onto you, okay? That's a form of manipulation where I am not owning my baggage, so to speak, okay? So that's what I'm meaning there of shifting responsibility. I'm not owning my baggage, so I distort facts. I'll give you the illusion that I have the power, and I prey upon your need for validation. I take away the power, and I throw that baggage on you. Make it all your fault.
Right.
Classic formula.
Yeah, which is what you'd see. Yeah, which is what you'd see in an abusive relationship, for sure.
Yeah. Those classic and codependent relationships, narcissistic relationships, toxic relationships.
Yeah, that's codependency 101. I guess I'm just wondering, like, what are the applications for, like, when you're talking about sort of manipulation as a form of social control? Like, isn't it the society that's shifting their responsibility up to the authority in that case?
Yeah, well, there's shifts happening all over the place except to oneself. Responsibility is going everywhere except to the self, or if it is going on to the self, then that person is being programmed to take on all the baggage.
Okay.
But no, so we'll talk about that in a bit too, like whose baggage belongs to whom. So there's always a paradox here, okay? And again, it's a double bind.
Right.
Where do the bags go? Okay. So again, to start neutralizing that formula, just go for simple facts. Don't buy into feelings and perception. What are the simple facts? And the simple fact is, where do the bags belong if somebody's throwing baggage around? What's mine? What's yours? And don't be persuaded by feelings and perception. Just what is the fact? Okay? You stepped on my toe. I said, ouch. That's the fact. It's not because I goaded you or because you didn't see me. Or the fact is you stepped on my toe, and that's it. And I said, ouch, it pained me. That's it. You don't need to pretend like I stuck my toe under your foot. You guys get what I mean? Like how it can, with feelings and perceptions, it can get into a game. Or I bumped your elbow and suddenly I'm a violent, prone person and a bully, and I'm a very bad person, and I'm probably I beat my wife and my kids now because I bumped your elbow. It just gets inflated with emotion and perception. Things get overinflated. Making sense?
Yeah, like I feel X versus you made me feel X.
Exactly, yeah. Or the feeling becomes the identity, right? I feel you're a bully, therefore you're a bully. So extract simple facts, okay? So what can make us susceptible to manipulations is fear. So we need to work on our own relationship with fear. That can be loss, stress, anxiety, our relationship to violence or danger. Because manipulation is looking for weaknesses, okay? Boom. Find your weakness and aggravate it. Need. Our needs. Survival, obligation, desperation. Lots of manipulative games are based upon obligation or imposed obligation. And also keep your desires in check. So we can use manipulation based on your level of greed. We can use sex. We can use revenge. We can use your desire for control. Okay, all of that again is coming from this emptiness, right? Why do I have greed? Because I have nothing inside, therefore I want it all. An identity, image. What do people think of me? What's my reputation? What's my status, high or low? What's my level of self-worth? What's my level of shame within myself? And a lot of media manipulation works with identity. And what's your identity? That's why there's so much identity politics. It just becomes, in the end, prone to manipulation. And emptiness, the most obvious forms of emptiness are feelings of disconnection, which can be addiction. So, I mean, if I'm going to like screw you over, I'm going to get you drunk and I'm going to promise sex. Now I can get what I want. Do you guys get it? This may make sense to you or not, but also our own innocence makes us prone to manipulation, meaning haven't experienced it yet. Our own ignorance, meaning I didn't know about that. But then there's indolence, which means laziness, and it's just I didn't bother to check it out. So, or I didn't bother to research it. I didn't bother to find out the facts. So that when we're lazy, we are, and if they know we're lazy, they'll know, oh, don't go looking over there. Just trust me. Don't read the contract. Just trust me. I'm a good person, right? So that makes us susceptible. Thoughts? Oh, so how do you counteract that? Fear, need, desire, identity, emptiness. Focus on your own innate resilience. It neutralizes all of that because it neutralizes needs, desires, fears, the need for identity. It puts you in a healthy relationship with emptiness where it's no longer empty, it's essence. And it actually takes you back into a state of purity, but also discernment. So, comments, questions, thoughts there?
I'm just curious how I can focus on that.
Well, you don't have to focus them all, but okay, Uta, you're a coach, right?
Yes.
Okay, when you're talking to their saboteur,
yeah,
this is where they're talking from: fear, need, desire, identity, emptiness. Okay, and this is where they're making excuses from: innocence, ignorance, and indolence, laziness. I didn't know. I didn't feel like it. Never experienced that before. If you feed this, they're manipulating themselves. All right? And this is where fulfillment coaching can even become a manipulation because it's feeding the fear, the need, and the desire. It's not resilient fulfillment. There's a difference between fear-based fulfillment and resilient fulfillment. 2 months back, I did a webinar called Unfollow the Carrot, which is all about that. Neutralizing the need to chase these false fulfillment things. Okay. Does that help answer your question a little bit, Uta?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. We manipulate each other. Society manipulates us, but we also manipulate ourselves inside our heads. Okay. So what are some examples of like obvious forms of manipulation? Well, it's what the bad people do, right? They intimidate, they threaten, they bully. Obvious. They blackmail, they entrap. Okay, like, you know, if you don't do what I want, I have your secret, I'm going to expose your secret. That's blackmail. If I want to find out your secret, I will entrap you and film you doing something that you're ashamed of, and then I'm going to file that away in an envelope or on a disc, and I'm going to say, if you don't do what I want, I'm releasing this. That's entrapment, okay? Temptation, honeypots, inflated promises. Do you guys know what a honeypot is? It's like when you have honey, it's going to attract the bees, right? So I'm going to give you some sugar and attract you in. I'm going to fill you with lots of promises, and then boom, I entrap you, okay? I'm going to tempt you, right? The devil took Jesus up on a mountain and said, I can give you all these kingdoms if you just sell your soul to me, basically, right? The bait and switch. I entice you. I make you think you're getting like this great deal, and then poof, I switch it and you got a bad deal. But you've already signed on the dotted line, okay? And checkmates and no choice offers means I've cornered you, so you really have no choice left. Or like what the mafia does, let me give you an offer like you can't refuse. Okay? Right? That's the no choice offer. It's either you die or you die. So which one's it going to be? Those ones are pretty obvious, yeah? And these are all about power. These are all about gaining or enticing power. And they're pretty obvious, okay? And we can protect ourselves from that, especially from blackmail. So be okay with what you've done. Be okay with the skeletons in your closet. No one can blackmail you. With entrapment or temptation or honeypots, keep your desires in check. Be resilient. Questions or thoughts? Okay. I'm going to move off those because the next ones are where it gets tricky. Good people manipulate us as well. And these ones are more subtle. They're invisible. Projection. I'm offloading. So do you guys understand what projection means? Something I don't own within myself, I'm highlighting in you or I'm throwing it on you, okay? So I can't stand homosexuals. They're awful people because I cannot admit that I am a homosexual myself. That's a projection. Or you're such a bully, you're such a bully, you're such a bully, you're such a bully, but I'm bullying you while I do it. Do you understand? So I am not taking ownership of something, I'm putting it on you. That's projection. Kind of a loose definition. Gaslighting, this is where I turn the tables. I'm not the one doing it, you're the one doing it. I'm the victim here. You're victimizing me. So it's a complete turnaround. Emotional warfare, using anger or emotional blackmail, shame, guilt, okay, as a way to beat you down or make you riled up. Weaponized virtues. This can be being very good, righteous, self-righteous, and pointing the finger down at you and saying, look at me, I'm so good, you're not. You need to do like I do because what you're doing is bad. This is the good, bad person kind of thing. This is where I can use my values as a shield or as a weapon against you. Okay? I'm sorry, I can't tolerate this personal point of privilege. These are weaponized virtues, okay? I'm sorry, but you need to talk more quietly because I'm super sensitive to my hearing. And you need to respect the space, you need to respect the group, and you need to respect me because you're being a bully right now. Making sense what I'm saying? Responses?
Yes.
Okay. Weaponized virtues. There's nothing wrong with virtues, but when they're weaponized, they become manipulation. And then narcissism. Whereas it's basically, it's like they use you, well, it goes very deep, but it's very toxic. They're basically really preying on your self-worth and low self-esteem, controlling you, gaslighting you, projecting on you. They're using all of this, okay? And they'll easily mirror the victimhood, but they'll also be the power monger too. They gain power when they fill you up, and then they'll just rip it away. It's basically they're the master and you're the puppet. That's a narcissist, and then they'll just dispose. But they did nothing wrong. It's all your fault. Clear, not clear? How's this going?
Yes.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay. How does it happen? Excuses, guilt trips, I'm going to pretend I'm innocent. I'm going to point the finger and blame you. I'm going to virtue signal. Do you guys know what virtue signaling is? It's like, I stand for justice, and because I stand for justice, so should you. Look at the way I do it. I'm such a virtuous person, so should you. Right? It's like, learn from me. I'm so good. Helpers, let me help you. Oh, I'm so concerned. Let me help you. And then they'll turn around and say, well, don't you appreciate all the things I do for you? Okay. And then they start clinging and they start creating dependency. Or it's the vampire victims. Oh my God, I'm suffering here. Please don't make me suffer anymore. Don't abandon me. Don't leave me. I'm drowning. I'm drowning. Help me. Or the righteous warriors. I stand up for the rights of this and that, and you are wrong. You are obstructing the justice, okay? Or they just pass the buck. It's like, it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. Or this is your responsibility. They keep imposing, you owe me the obligation. All of these things are doing is they're throwing the baggage at you. They are not owning up to what they are responsible for or fearful for or needing. They're putting it on you. And they can do it nicely, and they can make it look like you're wrong, or they make it look like they are the good people and that you are the bad people. How are you doing with this information? Am I just giving you too much of a download here?
I resonate with all you said, and I had an experience with the narcissist in my past. And fortunately, I was in a counseling course, and my teachers say, I don't allow you to have any longer this experience. And what do you learn from that? And I say to him, I never allow anyone to make me feel like this anymore. Take all responsibility of what happened. And it was really a bad experience. It's shocking.
Yeah. Probably the response is, but I did nothing wrong. Right?
Yes.
But I did nothing wrong. So the problem is on you.
Yes, right? Absolutely. It was really a game that anything was happening between us was my fault.
Right. That's what I mean by throw the baggage, throwing the responsibility over to you. Your fault, your fault, your fault. I did nothing here. How could it be my fault? Do you understand? That's classic projection and gaslighting, definitely. And weaponized virtues in emotional warfare do the same thing, and that is just classic narcissism. And there's more to narcissism. Anyone else have questions or comments here? What's happening in your heads at this moment? Because we're at the top of the hour here. I've got more I can show you, so if you can stay, you can stay. If you need to go, you can go. Just how are you feeling and what are you thinking?
Yes, I feel the manipulation by good people. That's the interesting or the juicy part, and I like the metaphor of the baggage, because that's such a good hint. Where's the baggage? Where's it thrown at? Who does it really own? So I like that.
And that's one of your most effective and basic tips. No matter what argument or what's going on, you keep tracking, okay, where does the baggage really go? Have some humility and resilience to take your part, but don't have such a low self-esteem to take all the baggage just so that they'll think you're a good person or that you'll think you're a good person. See, that's one of the tricks, is if you can let go of needing to be a good person, you'll have no problem throwing baggage back at somebody. Because when you do throw the baggage back, they'll call you every name in the book. You're mean, you're cruel. How dare you? I thought you were my friend. You guys, that's not fair. Do you guys understand? And that's all done emotionally, not factually. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we are again at the point what you said earlier, like emotion are meant to be
exactly
the truth.
That's right. So just the facts, take out the emotion and the perception, and track where the baggage is. Whose baggage is whose. That's one of the easiest things you can do to start building some immunity. Now, how to deal with it takes a little more resilience, but that in itself makes you aware of the game, okay? So these kinds of manipulations are based upon validation. Basically, I need to be recognized, need to be loved, need to be worth something, need to be a good person, any of those, okay? And when they get that in you, they'll aggravate it, okay? So what are some common manipulative phrases or actions? Just based on what you've seen, what we've already mentioned some, just from you guys, just little things you've heard that now sound like, maybe that was a manipulative phrase. We've all had them, or you've said them.
I have a full repertoire from my mother.
Yes, okay, excellent.
And she's, oh, now you are telling me that it's my fault, and what about you? Oh, any kind of these phrases, and when they say, you have to prove me that you are good. And I told her, I don't need to prove you anything because I know myself. I don't need your approbation. And she was like shocked because I wasn't reactive. I was really grounded in my words, and I said, I don't need any recognition from anyone. I know myself. This simple sentence can destroy any other.
That's a good antidote right there. Is you take it in, you pull it back out, and you just throw it right back. That's not a part of me. Like, you're such a terrible person. If you say, no, I'm not, that's going to create an aggravated game. But if you say, you're such a terrible person, fine, I'm terrible, and throw it back. What can they say? You don't even say, fine, you may think I'm terrible, but I know who I am. I'm in the manipulation. But if they say, you're such a terrible person, actually the best response is, okay.
Great.
Do you understand? And the trick there is, this is actually opposite to what we do in EED. What we do is, for every action, you invite a response. In this case, you do not invite response. You throw the ball back and you don't even ask for it. You don't ask them to play with it. You just throw the ball back. They throw you the ball, you throw it right back. And you don't wait to see how they play with it. You're such a terrible person, okay. And you don't even look to see how they're reacting to it. You cut your energy right off from it. And what will happen is the jaw will drop. They'll go, how can you say that? And they'll start baiting you again, right?
Yes.
Other phrases, words, or things people do. I got a list on here. I'll show you it. I just want to hear from you. Well, here's one. You're a bad person. I mean, basically all of them are saying that. You're a bad person. Whatever you did to me, you're a bad person. If you don't do this for me, you're a bad person. So if you have no sense of self, or you really want to please this person or impress them, you're going to think, oh my God, am I a bad person? I better fix this. Do you understand? Now I've walked into a manipulation. if you're okay being a bad person, I don't mean that, I mean having the image of being a bad person. If you're okay with people thinking you're a bad person, this has less effect on you. That takes resilience and knowing yourself. And if you did a bad thing, a bad action, then and you know your responsibility on it, then have the resilience and humility to be accountable to that bad action, but it still doesn't mean you're a bad person. Does this make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. And what people are doing is they're collapsing your actions with who you are. You did a bad thing, therefore you're a bad person, and that is forever. And it is unforgivable, and now you owe me. And I will keep bringing this up again and again whenever I need something from you. That's manipulation. Or the shock and awe. Oh my God, I've never experienced this ever in my life. I had one student who was becoming very aggressive, and with me, started to fight, and I said, wow, you're getting aggressive. And suddenly she stopped and she says, no one ever in my life has called me aggressive. I don't have an aggressive bone in my body. I've never been a bully. I said, well, that's what you're doing right now. You caused it, right? My fault. So that surprise of this has never, ever happened. Nobody's ever done this. You're the first person, therefore you're bad. Making sense? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Okay. You owe me. Come on, help me out here. You owe me. Remember what I did for you? You owe me. Yeah, I thought I'd repaid that back like 5 times already. Yeah, but you owe me. I've been so good to you. Okay? That's unbalanced. Or I thought you were my friend. I thought you were my friend, but now I don't know. I'm threatening the relationship here, right? Sound familiar?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Or this one, now I don't know if I really can trust you again. This is perhaps after you've done something and you've said, I'm sorry. And I say, well, okay, but I don't know if I can trust you anymore or ever again. Now, if you've done something really bad and you're really going to have to earn your trust, okay, that's different. But if you've done a small thing and they're now going to exaggerate it and say, now I don't know if, you lied to me once, now are you a liar? Oh, you bumped my elbow, now you're an abuser and you're violent. When it starts to expand into extremes and absolutes and forever, you got to watch for that. It's got to be reasonable and realistic. So watch for when things get aggravated to the absolute. Or, I thought you were better than this. Or you should know better, really. Like, hi, you're late on your payments. And it's like, what? I thought you were a coach. I thought you were supposed to champion the best in people. I'm really surprised that you're coming after me like some shit banker now that, pay your invoice on time. Like, I'm sorry, but my value is flexibility. Anybody ever heard that one?
Even worse.
Problem for you.
Your what?
My value is flexibility. That's a really interesting deflection of not paying your bills.
Well, that's weaponizing virtues, right? So,
This is a sidebar, but yeah, coaches are good at weaponizing virtues because they know all the
absolutely.
things.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with the values and the virtues, but when they start getting weaponized, used as shields or masks or weapons, yeah. And they may not even realize they're doing that. So, it's like, oh, well, that's not a coach thing to do. You disagreed with me. What? Classic. You did this, not me. You're responsible. Right? You made me spill my glass of wine on my shirt. You made me, because you made me nervous. You brought up that thing that I didn't want to talk about, and you made me spill the wine. Right? This is also great. Like, okay, now that you've deceived me or betrayed me according to my thoughts and perceptions, I'll never know if you're telling the truth ever again. I've just set you up to earn back my trust forever, and it'll never be good enough when I say that statement. Especially works if you lied a little bit. Yeah? You deserve this. This is for your own good. I'm concerned about your lifestyle, so I'm taking this away from you, and this is for your own good. Or classic, you are being inappropriate right now. That is so inappropriate. You could be absolutely appropriate, but in their perception, it's not appropriate. And therefore, I'm making you feel weak and like a bad person. Or the other one is, if you've ever employed somebody and you gave them an assignment and then they give it back and you're like, okay, here's some notes, now go do it again. Or make improvements. And like, what? I did my best. I tried. You're just too demanding. You're not paying me enough. I'm suffering in this job. Sound familiar? Anybody hear that? True, not true? I've heard it. Yeah, Uta?
Yeah, and I think it's always if there's the R or the B in it, like you are.
Yes.
That's what's very intriguing. You pointed us to differentiating between you are or you act in a certain way. And
That's
so
right.
whenever there is this to be, you are, then it's to be aware.
That's right. Be aware of the emotions and the being. Bring it back to just the facts. So the fact is, I gave you parameters and guidelines to design this poster for me or to do this research for me. You're bringing it back. You didn't complete the assignment. Therefore, thank you for the work done. And now, here's the rest of the work you need to do. Yeah, but I tried my best. You know, how can you accuse me of bad work when I put all my effort into this and I adore and admire you as a boss, but now suddenly, I mean, this has never happened to me before. Like, and I mean, you didn't even give me clear instructions. I don't think so. I'm not responsible for this. You know, I've never experienced this with anyone in my life, and I so admired you. This is inappropriate. You're too demanding. I just used almost all of them. Plus, I thought we were friends. And
has this all happened to you in the same conversation? It kind of sounds like it has, given the heat in there.
Yeah, I'm drawing from personal experiences, so yes.
Kind of feels that way. Yep.
People trying to weasel out of responsibility will throw all this mud at you, right? How do you safeguard? Give clear instructions and make sure they understand. And don't be afraid to send back mediocre work.
These phrases are very common. I met all of them.
Yeah, and this isn't the whole list. This is already an oversampling. The best one is you're crazy. You're crazy. Right? That's when they're shifting responsibility. You're crazy. Narcissists and gaslighters will do that a lot. You're the one who's crazy, not me. Okay. Some things they'll do, they'll put you in the doghouse. Like, you're punished. Don't come out until I say so. Or they'll assassinate your character. You're mean. You're a bully. You don't understand, etc., etc., etc. Or they'll turn the tables around. That's, again, gaslighting. Or they'll patronize you or admonish you or criticize you. Like, patronizing means they come from a high status and they talk down to you, like in a nice way. You know, I really thought we were friends here, but it just seems like you're running a reckless life, and I don't know if I can trust you anymore. That's patronizing. Or the false kindness and concern. The best is what I've experienced amongst other coaches is, I have some feedback for you. I'm really concerned, when it has really nothing to do with me, but more to do with them. Whether it's a projection or they're passing responsibility onto me so they don't have to deal with their stuff. Anybody have had that? False feedback?
Yes.
Yeah. And it comes across very nicely and as your best friend who's concerned for your well-being. So you can receive these things from mentors, helpers, saviors, where they pretend to coach you, but really it's to manipulate away from their own responsibilities and put it on you. It's your fault, not theirs. They'll preach to you, they'll punish you, they'll blame you, accuse you, they'll overreact. Oh my God, you bumped my elbow. I feel violated. Okay? They're overly defensive. What do you mean? What do you mean? What, are you're saying that I did wrong? Oh my God, you did wrong. You did worse. Okay? They'll bounce it back, or they'll just dismiss it. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. You worry too much. You're crazy. Distract you. Oh God, look, there's a bird. Wow, interesting thing over there. Or they'll introduce some way juicier subject just to get off the topic. That's distraction. Or they're like a rubber wall. Doesn't affect me. Doesn't affect me. Or they're evasive. They avoid the conversation. Or they're ambiguous. So so how many hours did you work for me this week? Well, I tried really hard and I kind of work from my inspiration. Yeah, I don't see any hours logged on your tracking sheet. Yeah, but I mean, I work when I feel like it. So I worked a lot. I really tried. How many hours? Right? So, or they do the idle threats or the false exit. Like, I'm leaving you. And then they check to see if you're reacting or watching. And experience that, the false exit. I'm leaving you. We're not going to be friends anymore. And then they're waiting for you to pull them back in. The worst one is the cancer card. That's what I call the cancer card. How dare you bring this up for me? I have cancer. Or I'm gay. Or I'm black. Or I'm this. Or I'm that. And they take the most taboo thing and say, I'm protected because that you can't cross that line. Do you understand? I'm Jewish, therefore we can't talk about certain things. You're anti-Semitic. You can't say that because I'm non-binary. I don't have a gender. So how dare you call me he, him? My pronouns are ja, ja, ja. So that's the cancer card. It means don't cross this line. Irene, did you want to say something?
Oh, this is a great insight that I had in this moment, because I did last year with a friend that was disabled, and she was playing the card, the cancer card, anytime, unless I say, okay, I am a bad person, I don't care, but I'm not willing to stay with you any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love this friendship, because it was really too much. And I say, okay, it's okay. The wonderful thing is that I didn't feel bad by doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Sense of guilty or ashamed, because I was just playing my resilience card.
Right. a lot of toxicity will be thrown at you when they use the Cancer card. You really are a very bad person. You'll be called a racist, a misogynist, a white supremacist, a Nazi, a murderer. You know, you'll be called every name in the book because it's tied to something so socially taboo. And you're the one breaking the taboo. So you're a really terrible person now. How dare you criticize the quality of my work? I'm in a wheelchair. I am a paraplegic. I only have, you know, so much time and effort, and I'm not like a normal able-bodied person who can, you know, do the assignment the first time perfectly. You're such a perfectionist and you're too demanding. Did you get it?
Yes, many times.
Okay, yeah. I'm just using all the tricks, right? You can use this to use against people, but that's not what I'm encouraging you to do. I'm encouraging you to hear through their statements, to hear where they're coming from. Just remember, for every person that has cancer, one suffers and dies, and the other is resilient and thrives. And one uses their suffering to get whatever they want, and the other is resilient and still gets what they want, but without making you feel bad. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's how you distinguish the Cancer card. They use disability or social prestige or prejudice to advance their way without the effort, is what I mean. The innocent victim is similar. Like, I never did that. It's not my fault, okay? And I'm the victim here. It's another way of turning the tables. I didn't realize I had so much information here. So,
well, to me it was highlighting because I also recognize all the times I did it.
Oh, we all do this, consciously or unconsciously.
And now I'm wondering, how can I stop to use, because sometimes it feels like really innocent because it's an habit that we inherit, and so it's automatic.
It is
so
an
to
automatic.
me now, my new challenge to gain more awareness is how to never use this tool.
Well, forgive yourself if you do, and you can train yourself to stay in a clean place. I mean, this is where I would say the two most important things are know yourself from source and resilience. So practice accessing your own source and resilience. That automatically keeps you clean. Okay?
That was really insightful. Thank you, Troy, because it's a really, well, a quantum leap for my awareness.
What is?
Learning how I use it in my past, and sometimes I still using, and how can be cleaner and more resilient in myself to don't need to use anymore.
Yeah. When you're connecting to source, it automatically, I mean, imagine you're experiencing unity, love, peace, and limitlessness unconditionally. None of that stuff is necessary, okay? Because there's no need to use and abuse people. And you're also able to have compassion towards yourself, be patient and persistent, and be rigorous and truthful and transparent with yourself without unneeded, unnecessary pressure or thinking you're a bad person. There's no such thing as good or bad when you're at source level. It's unified. Do you understand? So you can use your past to learn from yourself, to work through yourself, work through your fears. Like, why was I manipulating there? Oh, it was because I feared this or needed that. Well, if I can neutralize that fear, that need, I don't need to use that tactic. And when it comes at me, I'll recognize it because I used it myself. So you can learn a lot just from your own behaviors, but do come from compassion and forgiveness for yourself. And, be plugged into resilience while you do that. Remember to just extract fact. Separate doing and being from identity. So I may have yelled at you, but that doesn't mean I'm a bully or aggressive or violent. It means I yelled. It means I was angry. I'm not an angry person. I'm just angry now, right? So separate moments from absolutes, where it goes into extremes like always and forever, okay? That way, and start tracking what's your baggage, what's theirs. Now, here's 3 things that I'd say as homework for you guys, like redefine responsibility, because that gets abused a lot. You're responsible. Redefine for yourself what it means to be a good person, because if it's according to rules and conditions, my view of what a good person is, therefore, if you're not in my view of what a good person is, then you're not a good person to me. And if that matters, then I've got you. Do you understand? Redefine what fairness means, because all 3 of those get twisted around and manipulated. Responsibility only means that you are responsive and accountable to your actions. Your actions, not theirs. You're not responsible for their perception or their projection of what they think is a mess. So being responsible does not mean clean up the mess. It means be responsive and accountable. Because remember, they can mix in perceptions. You made me cry. Now you've made a mess. Clean it up. Apologize. But wait a minute. You completely did wrong and betrayed me. I mean, why should I apologize for putting you back in your place and having you be accountable to your actions? Do you understand? So watch if your mess makes them actually, watch if what they call a mess actually made them hold their own baggage or expose their baggage, and then they got scared and they started to throw it back to you to say, clean up that mess. If they say you were reckless and you're a bad person with no awareness and no morals, why? Because I actually held you accountable to your own baggage. I threw it back. Is this making sense what I'm saying here?
Yes.
Yes, a lot.
Yeah, so responsibility means the ability to respond and be accountable to your own actions, not to someone else's perception of what should be done about it or their perception of what a mess is, okay? To someone else's mess is another person's opportunity, is another person's crisis, okay? I've seen that get so twisted around. Yeah, don't interpret responsibility out of fear, shame, guilt, or obligation, okay? Don't take on someone's baggage just to look responsible. So always be discerning and think critically and think logically. When someone is emotionally blackmailing or manipulating you, it's not very logical. And when you can think critically, you keep bringing it back to fact, 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 simple facts, okay? It's a good skill. And in yourself, as a lifetime of work, neutralize your own fears, sense of guilt, and sense of shame, because it gets used against you always. And for you, if you promise something, deliver it. If you're not delivering it, be accountable and communicate. And as far as someone else is concerned, don't believe their words, believe what they deliver. Again, focus on actions, not words or promises. Truth, practice truth and transparency with action and accountability, and things are a lot cleaner, especially when it comes from resilience and generosity, perseverance, patience, compassion, and also being able to be demanding. How does this pull together for you guys? I know it's a lot of information. Thoughts?
I really like the list from the last slide that you showed. Like, I had a top 3 for myself, and I guess I'm going to overthink some of my past actions. And yeah, that's the biggest takeaway for me now.
Okay. Awesome.
Hmm.
Anyone else? I'm just scrolling through. These are other more advanced ways to deal with a persistent manipulator. So these ones we work in the conflict workshops. But the two easiest ones are bring it back to fact, not fault. If you're having an argument and there's a lot of blame going around, bring it back to what are the facts, not whose fault is it. What's the fact? And then own your baggage. And another simple one is call the bluff. So, for example, if they say, well, you always decide where we want to go to eat. I never get to choose. All right. You've got the choice. I'd love to go wherever you want to eat. Call the bluff, right? What you might get back is, I want Chinese food. Deliver what you promise. Go for the Chinese, okay? Or what you might get is, well, I don't know, because, I mean, you might not like my choice. That is now manipulation. Do you understand? Well, choose. Give me where do you want to go? Well, maybe I'd like some Italian or maybe some Chinese or some French food. But you know, I don't have to choose. You always make the right choice. But you just said that you never get to choose. So I'm giving you the choice. You see how this can go back and around and around and around? So then they say, well, okay, we'll go to the Italian restaurant. And they're waiting for you to react or fight it. And you just say, great. Perfect. That's the response to call the bluff. Perfect. And they don't know. Like, and even, well, should we go here or should we go there? I'll just say, perfect. Well, what do you mean? Either is okay for me. Because you know they know where they want to go. They just don't dare to say it, or they want to. They want your validation that their choice is correct. Are you seeing the sneaky validation, the sneaky manipulations in there? Or did I move too fast?
No, it's tricky and good to see.
Okay. So act and do not invite response. So if you get a text message, well, should we meet at 8 or 9? Say 8 o'clock sounds great. Don't say, how is that for you? Just say 8 o'clock is great. Okay. Because if you say, how is that for you? They'll say, well, 8 might not work so well. I mean, they just gave you 2 options to choose from, so take them. Right? Especially if you're dealing with an indecisive person. So you say, 8 works great, thanks. And then if they come back and say, well, you know, I might be working late, I don't know. 8 might be too early. So then just come back with what time is best for you. Well, I don't want to impose, or maybe you don't want to make it a late night. Maybe you don't want to make it a late night. Right? See, again, passing the responsibility of the decision. So, again, they could say, well, how's 8:30? Perfect. Well, then if they say, well, then you decide on the time. And then I say, we're meeting at 8:30 at such and such a place. See you then. Boom, done. Like, don't check back. Does that make sense? Because otherwise it goes on forever. Or I just talked with a friend last night about negotiations, and she gives an offer and then she gets the response, well, no, I don't like that offer. I thought it was going to be more this, this, this. And then give me a better offer. She returns and says, well, then you tell me your proposal. What are your adjustments? And then she gets the response, well, no, that's up to you to decide. The person refused to give the counter offer, wanted to make her guess what the counter offer is supposed to be. And so I said, what you do is you send back a firm and worse offer and see how they respond. Because that just holds them accountable. Because they didn't take the opportunity to make the counter offer, so make the offer now worse and more in your favor. That will make them step up and make a counter offer to you. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because they're banking on, and with this person, they were banking on two things: that this person would be a good person, and that this person was only too willing to do all the work to design the next offer that would be worse in her favor, but just because this person wants to be looked at as a good person, for example. I mean, there's many, 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 many reasons. Also because probably this person is more competent anyways, but you have to give it over and say, look, if you want a counter offer, you give me the counter offer, and then we can talk. Don't tell me I'm supposed to write up this counter offer in your favor. That's crazy. Right? That's, again, passing responsibility. So ultimately what we do in the conflict course and in module 2 is you learn these games and you learn to play them better, okay? By being able to neutralize them, by being able to shift them around. So when you drop into source and dream, you have more awareness and flexibility. And you can also start dropping other people into dream and source, and that neutralizes them where they don't have to hold on to these games. I know we're well over time. So I'd love to know what you're taking away, briefly, and what has inspired you.
To me, was a huge learning on about self-awareness and how it's so powerful, knowing how I did and what moves me to understand others. It was really an enlightening webinar. Thank you very much, Troy. And I hope soon I can take the course, because I love to work in conflict resolution, and I think that this is very important, crucial to develop skills and more experience in helping conflict resolution.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. I mean, this gets completely expanded out. I know I programmed way too much into this webinar. I still have to get better at really slimming it down to just a few simple points. But I always love to give everything. Okay. Who else?
For me, this webinar really helped me to tie together some loose ends about the ego, where it stems from, that it imitates the world in itself, and that even though you didn't speak about polarities, kind of helped me to see that a double bind or manipulation is always just half of the truth. And so it sounds illogical, but when you're kind of in the game too much that you can't see it from the outside, then you're likely to believe it.
Yeah.
So really, yeah, we can get my head around a couple of things. Thank you.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, it was also a lot of self-awareness and awareness of what's happening around. And you also answered my question from the start, where's the shift from, oh, it's just a play of status to becoming manipulative. And I especially like the awareness of the positive behavior and what's behind it and what's part of the game already.
Yeah.
And as I said already during the call, I love the metaphor of the baggage, because that's for me so easy, and that's something I just take along into everyday life. So thanks a lot. This was really great, a great webinar and very enlightening.
Awesome. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, no, I found it very helpful. I mean, I guess I'm sort of reacting to it on two levels. I mean, a lot of the stuff I work through, like when you're dealing with, like, say, like an addict,
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of these things. And one of the things that's so difficult to do is walk away from the drowning victim, because you're terrified that I was terrified that my action would lead to his death or his imprisonment or something. You know what I mean? So you've got this gun to your head, and it really, even if he's wasn't purposely being manipulative, I mean, you got a pretty severe gun to your head.
Yeah, that's a last resort, and it's a very powerful technique, and that's exactly what they're banking on. They're asking you to save them, and what really they're asking you to do is jump in the water so that you're drowning, because they will crawl on top of you to get themselves out. That's the nature of it. It takes a lot of resilience and stamina and backbone to, after you've given them 100 bids to save them, or however many is your limit, you have to be able to turn around and walk away. And it feels like a huge risk, like they're going to die because of you. But it's never because of you. You have to remember that if you're clear, right? But yeah, keep going, Jason. I didn't get to highlight that, so I'm glad you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and codependency and addiction is certainly an extreme example, but you see those things in subtle ways. One of the things I've been sort of struggling with and sort of exploring my own writing too is how these techniques are being used in the world. And because so much of what came up with me around this was the environmental movement right now is very much operating in this energy. And it's very frustrating to me because, I spent 3 years volunteering for a conservation society in Florida, and I became really sort of burned out and disillusioned by it because it's so focused on guilt, shame, manipulation, virtue signaling, so on and so on. It's like, well, how do you, if you're a person that actually cares about the issues and the facts, it's very hard to figure out where you fit in that in the current climate. I don't mean the environmental climate, I mean just sort of the psychological climate, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
there's two climates. You're right. It's a psychological climate, and then there is the environmental or physical climate that they're talking about. Right. But there's also other factors. And again, if to keep it really simple, is dig to source. So where are these studies coming from? Who did these studies? Who paid for those studies, right? And if you keep following the money trail, then you can start questioning some of these scientific results, because if it's a corporation or an industry sponsoring it, of course the results are going to be in their favor. And then, so it's a big, deep hole. But on the surface, you're right. It is a lot of weaponization of virtues. And you think, so who benefits from that? I mean, I know they're saying the planet will benefit, but let's research on what's really going on with the planet. If you do the history on that, they've been changing that climate story, flip-flopping for, since the 60s. So it's not consistent, right?
Yeah. And I live in the U.S. now too. So I mean, the social climate here is certainly much more extreme, because you live in Europe now, yeah?
Yeah. And the social climate is in topsy-turvy everywhere. This is why I also thought this was important, because it's not just the U.S., it's not just China or Hong Kong. I mean, it's not just Europe, it's everywhere.
Right. One thing I was kind of curious about, maybe this is a one-on-one call or something, but my mom she got certified with coaching through Erickson last year. And so I kind of got reacquainted with the coaching principles and so forth, because, I took module 1 way back when. Yeah. But your coaching for resilience rather than transformation kind of piqued my interest, because it seems like a lot of coaching training is very much transformation focused and very much on what do you want to get out of life, what do you want to change. And that doesn't sound like where you're coming from particularly.
No, I designed EED to focus on resilience first over transformation, so that we already neutralize getting ourselves into manipulative traps with our clients, either them manipulating us or the coach manipulating the client for the sake of transformation. If I say to you, Jason, you need to transform, play a bigger game, be better, or if you're saying that to yourself, it's coming from a level of non-acceptance. Therefore, it's already a manipulation.
Right.
if I first connect you to resilience, you'll be on a different level of acceptance with yourself. And if I'm on that same level with you, I won't be pushing for transformations here or there because I won't have a bias of what I think is the best life for you, right? We all have those biases, but so that's the number one thing. What EED is doing is it's neutralizing any temptations or traps to fall into manipulative games with clients, because then it won't be a sustainable transformation. It might be a quick fix. It might feel good, but it won't sustain.
Right. Yeah. So this is not a criticism of your prior work, just so I understand. This is a little bit different than your perspective, say, 12 years ago, though. Yeah. The way you were trained.
Yeah. I mean, it is different, and it was designed, and it was from, the 12 years of development that I came to these conclusions, because I couldn't figure out, I mean, in a way, I mean, this is a whole other call, but it's also, I brought this up on previous webinars, is that the word transformation is what the whole industry is built upon, but it's also an embedded trap. And so when you're focusing on resilience, transformation is a natural byproduct. So therefore, you don't actually need to focus on it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I just thought it's very, yeah, because I mean, transformation is the foundation of all self-help. All that, as you say, that whole industry, that whole mindset is very much sort of goal-oriented or so forth.
And it is.
That's what I said, the focus on resilience.
And people can be very well-meaning good people, but it is also susceptible to manipulations, and there are other people that, grab hold of it and manipulate. So.
Yes, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. It was really good to see you. I really appreciated this.
Awesome. So.
As we are on this topic of transformation, where, I mean, you're highlighting every call that this is about transmutation, like the alchemical process, so rearranging things. Isn't that the main differentiator of EED to another coaching method? That we are not necessarily pushing for something, but we're like rearranging, or can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, it's a full acceptance of what's already there, and then allowing it to rearrange itself into its let's say most purified self, which is most purely connected to source, the purest expression of source, let's say, which will be the most efficient and effective and creative. And I am not the manipulating everything to rearrange it, nor is the client. Okay, the source is just streaming through, and everything just writes itself. I see that happen over and over and over and over again.
Which is because you involve those lower two levels.
Yeah.
Or deeper levels.
Yeah, the deeper levels. The deeper levels are, the transformation takes place at source and dream. Okay, we access the source of all potential. It can rearrange in the dream because it's like toggle mode on your iPhone where you can move your apps around, right? You can't do that in dream because they're all rigid in place. And so when things rearrange at dream, it automatically changes the game, which automatically changes the story. So, but people don't know how to access that fluid dream level because they're still thinking on game level. The main purpose of module 1 is to get you experiencing dream level so it starts shifting your thinking. And then the rest of the modules give you better and better techniques to access those levels more deeply and to be able to sustain them longer. And then start getting all 4 levels working congruently with each other instead of fighting. So great. In Europe, we have a module 1 in November 22nd to 24th. Our next webinar is called Listening with the Quantum Mind. So that talks a lot more about working at source level and dream level. And our conflict workshop is in Munich in December. So right now I don't have anything in Canada. I'm making plans for 2020, and I would love to go out to Vancouver by the end of 2020, and I would love to develop Montreal because we've done Toronto. So that's my goal, is to see if we can get something in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver in Canada. And otherwise, we're in Munich, Frankfurt, Paris. So far in Germany and France. If you have any more questions, feel free to email me, look at the website, follow us on Twitter, Facebook. And thank you all for being here. And if you have further questions, you feel free to stick around. For now, I'm going to just shut down the recording. So thank you all for attending, and thank you all for listening. And we'll see you